Hello guys and welcome back to Joshua's prediction show. This is the prediction show for the Champions League on Tuesday and on Wednesday in the evening. We are going to start off with the first game on Tuesday, which is a 5:45 kickoff between Napoli and Frankfurt. Obviously, it's a bit tough to go on there. You can go on recent form, but in the Champions League, it is a totally different kettle of fish altogether. There is nothing that separates them. When you look at the Champions League table, Frankfurt are in 22nd and Napoli are in 23rd. But in their separate leagues, and if you look around all the scores, there's a lot of different things where you go. PSV last time out beat Napoli 6-2. Do you look into that? It's hard to look into it when there was a red card in the game. And it's also really hard to look at Frankfurt against Liverpool because they showed so much right at the start, and then as soon as Liverpool started performing really well, it was a one-time result sort of thing, and they literally would just fall away. So, taking that into consideration, it is going to be an open contest. It is an early game. Normally means when there's early games, there's not many goals in the early ones. So my prediction is Napoli 2, Frankfurt 1. So we're going to then move on to our next game, which is another 5:45 game. It is between Slavia Prague against Arsenal. Again, right. Slavia Prague have had... They've won, if you look at their recent form, they've got 6 points in 5 games, and you've seen a 0-0, a 0-0, a 4-0 and a 2-0, and one of those 0-0s was the Champions League. And then you've also got, if you look at Arsenal's form, well, you know they're 5 from 5 at the moment, and they're looking particularly very, very tasty. Arsenal in the Champions League are yet to concede a goal, so that is quite impressive. And Slavia Prague are 2 and 5 from their 3 games. They've scored 2 and conceded 5. Because this is in Slavia Prague, I'm going to give Slavia Prague a goal, but Arsenal 3. So it's going to be Slavia Prague 1, Arsenal 3. That is in the eyes of my prediction. Moving on to the next Champions League game, which is between Atletico Madrid and Union St. Galois. Again, Arsenal were Atletico Madrid's last real Champions League game, and we know very much that that is not going to come into consideration here. And you've also looked at Inter that beat St. Galois 4-0 as well in their last Champions League tie. Atletico Madrid sit 19th, St. Galois sit in 24th. St. Galois are 3 and 9, so they've scored 3, conceded 9, and Atletico Madrid are 7 and 8. They've scored 7, conceded 8, and 4 of them came against Arsenal in that 4-0 defeat at the Emirates. In my case, I think this will be a tight game, and I think this one's going to be a close game. I think it's going to come down to the wire. I'm going to go Atletico Madrid 2, Union St. Gilloise 1. Then we move on to Bodo Glimt and AS Monaco. Which is, Bodo Glimt and Monaco. Their last game was Galatasaray away in the Champions League. They lost that one 3-1, and Monaco's last game in the Champions League was that 0-0 draw with Tottenham. So, again, this is a really tough tie for them two to split. They are both 27th and 26th in the league. Monaco only scoring 3 and conceding 6. And Bodo Glimt scoring 5 and 7. Scoring 5, conceding 7. They're both on 2 points in the Champions League at the moment. Both sat outside the playoff race of the Champions League. Now, we see a lot more from Monaco in Ligue 1, which is their French division. We don't see their performances too great in the Champions League, but I think this one is going to be a bit of a test in the way of Monaco are going to need to soon start going into games with a bit of confidence. With only 5 games left of this Champions League season, they need to start getting that points going, because at the moment they are very, very underachieving in this division. So, in that aspect, I'm going to go Bodo Glimt 1 and Monaco 3. That is my prediction for that one. Moving on to Juventus v Sporting. Now, Sporting CP are a very, very, very good side. Indeed, they are literally unbeaten this season. In their last 5 games so far. Their last Champions League game, they beat Marseille 2-1. That was at Sporting. This one is away to Juventus. And Juventus away were away in their last Champions League game to Real Madrid, and they lost that one 1-0. I think they're going to lose this one again by 1 goal. But I'm going to give Juventus 1 and Sporting Lisbon 2. And the reason because of that is Sporting sit 12th with 7 and 4, and Juventus sit in 25th with 6 and 7. So I'm going with the stronger team in the competition to pull off the win. Moving on, we are then going to go to Liverpool against Real Madrid. You don't need to know too much about this, but obviously Liverpool beat Frankfurt 5-1 in their last game. And as we already said, Real Madrid beat Juventus 1-0 in their last game. But when you look at the head-to-head between Liverpool and Real Madrid, let's have a quick look back. So their first ever performance against these two teams was back in 1981 between and Liverpool were at Anfield and they won 1-0. And then back in 2009, Liverpool won 1-0 as well away in Real Madrid. And then in 2009, in the reverse fixture, this is obviously before the tournament changed. You used to play teams twice, home and away. Liverpool won 4-0. And then you see where the tables turned and who got the stronger team. In the way of, from 2014, Real Madrid went to Anfield, won 4-0. In 2014, they also won 3-0. In 2018, they beat Liverpool 3-1. Then in 2021, beat them 3-1. So, basically, you go back and you look at Liverpool winning 1, 2, 3, 4 out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So 12 meetings and they've won 4, and there's only been 1 draw. So that basically stands out as Real Madrid have won 7 and drawn 1 and lost 4. So in that case, and Liverpool have been on a really shaky run. People said, oh, Liverpool are back after their performance against Aston Villa. Well, this is their test. Are they really back? In my eyes, it's a big fat no. Real Madrid are going to come to Anfield and they are going to show who is the better team out of the two. And I see it being Real Madrid. And I'm going to say Liverpool 1, Real Madrid 3. That is that one. Moving on to another kind of test here where I have gone for, it is Olympiacos versus PSV. Obviously, Olympiacos played Barcelona in their last game and got battered 6-1. So yeah, that one's been quite a tough one. And they were also down to 10 men from the 57th minute onwards. So Barcelona really then turned on the gears and started scoring. They could have scored maybe 3 or 4 more. It could have been more disastrous than 6-1. But then PSV, in their last 5, are unbeaten. And they are winning by a lot of goals as well. Their last 5 games are 4-0, 2-1, 6-2 over Napoli in the Champions League, 3-2 over Feyenoord, and then 5-2 over Sittard, in their division. And then you look at the table and you go PSV is 16th. Olympiacos sat with only 1 goal in their game, and that was against Barca. They've conceded 8, which is not good enough. And I can actually see PSV going to Olympiacos and running mad. And because of me saying that, I'm going to go Olympiacos 1, and we're also going to go PSV 4. So we're going to say 4-1 for another hefty defeat, and it looks pretty much dead and done for Olympiacos getting out of the Champions League or even getting in the playoff race at all. Moving on, then we go to another really big game in the Champions League on Tuesday night between the holders, PSG, and one of the recent winners in the way of Bayern Munich. Obviously, Bayern Munich have been building their teams up over the last few years since they last won the Champions League title. But PSG won 7-2 in their last Champions League game against Leverkusen in that really, really heavy game. And Bayern won quite comfortably with that 4-0 win over Club Brugge. Now, PSG, when you look back in the week, in their last game on the 1st of November, they picked up a 1-0 lead, but a 1-0 win, but they had to wait until the 96th minute. Where with Bayern Munich, they had killed Leverkusen off at half-time, and that was the end of it. There was no comeback, there was no nothing, it was all shut out, and that was game over. And I quite see in this one being quite a tight one, but with a hefty lot of goals. So I am going to go PSG 2, Bayern Munich 3. And in the table, they're both literally sat together at first and second. PSG with 13 and 3, which means they've got a 10 difference. And Bayern Munich have got a 12 and 2. And that is another 10 difference. So basically, they either score a load of goals and then concede one or two, or they concede, or they score a lot of goals, or they just score a lot of goals and don't concede. So it's very up and arming. But there is 5 teams in the Champions League that are on 9 points from 3 games. So that is absolutely 100% winning record so far in the Champions League. Now, our last game on the Tuesday night is between Tottenham and FC Copenhagen. Now, I've seen Tottenham play a few times in the Premier League this season already, and there's not a lot to like at the moment. They have a good performance, and then they have an average performance, then they have 2 really good performances, and then they go back to dropping off and just bottling things. And obviously, in their last game in the Champions League, we saw them draw 0-0. But then we've also seen them since that game, we've also seen them play Everton in the Prem at the Hill Dickinson Stadium, where Everton were unbeaten until Tottenham showed up and destroyed them. Then we saw a really, really poor performance from Tottenham against Newcastle in the Qarabag Cup and lost 2-0 to Newcastle. And then on Saturday at 5:30, we saw them lose 1-0 to Chelsea, and Chelsea could have scored 5 or 6. So, and then Copenhagen lost 4-2 to Dortmund, but kept it quite competitive, and the score is not exactly what it should have been. It could have been a lot closer than 4. The goalkeeper. So for this one, I'm going to go Tottenham 1, FC Copenhagen 1. So that would mean another draw for Tottenham in the Champions League. Copenhagen are on 1 point from 3 games in the Champions League with 4 goals scored and 8 against. And Tottenham are on 5 points and they are on 3 goals scored and 2 goals conceded. But the thing is, that 0-0 draw and their recent performances have just not been good enough to get close to FC Copenhagen, who I think in some ways could really nick this game right at the death, maybe nick it 2-1. But as I said, my prediction is Tottenham 1, Copenhagen 1. So that wraps up Tuesday's Champions League games. So we're going to now move on to Wednesday's Champions League games, starting with Pafos against Villarreal. Pafos are sneaked a 0-0 draw against Kairat Almaty in their recent Champions League game, which is a very, very underperforming Pafos, because they should have picked up points there, but they didn't, being a red card and a very late penalty miss. Villarreal, since their 2-0 defeat in the Champions League to Man City, have won 2-0, 6-0 and 4-0. And in this one, I see them not conceding again. But this one, I'm going to go Pafos 0 and Villarreal 2. So that's another clean sheet. And that would mean that would be 4 clean sheets in a row since their last defeat in the competition, or in the entire of their run of games recently. Moving on to Qarabag versus Chelsea. Chelsea obviously are going to be travelling away to Azerbaijan on the Wednesday night, and this is going to be a very tough test, because Qarabag lost 3-1 to Atletico Bilbao in their last Champions League game, and Chelsea beat Ajax 5-1, which was an incredible performance. And Chelsea have put really three very good performances together, quite nicely together in this Champions League. But Qarabag are 6-5 on 6 points from 3 games, and Chelsea is 7-4 on 6 points after 3 games. So in that way, you would be looking at this game's going to be tighter than the money in someone's pocket. It's not. I see Chelsea having too much quality for Qarabag, and Qarabag is the reason that they are on a very tough run of games at the moment in their Azerbaijan division. They've drawn a lot of games. So I'm going to go Qarabag 0, Chelsea 3. That is that one done. Moving on to Ajax and Galatasaray. Obviously, Ajax are lost 5-1 to Chelsea, which we just jumped upon. Ajax went down to a red card in the very early minutes. I think it was very, very early in the game as well. Yeah, it was in the 15th minute. They were down 10 men after 15 minutes. So even for them to sneak a goal was incredible. But yeah, they were on a backer run. And Ajax are on... in their league, they've won 4 points from their... they've won 5 points from their last 5. And that's without taking the... That's with the Chelsea game in there as well, which is obviously not in their league. And Galatasaray beat Bodo Glimt in their last Champions League fixture 3-1. It was an easy game for Galatasaray. They took the lead 1-0 and then went 2-0 up and then closed the game out. And then Bodo Glimt nicked one right at the end just to give it and give them a consolation. Galatasaray in the last 5, a draw 1-1 in the league, a 2-1 win in the league, a 3-1 win in the Champions League, a 3-1 win in their league, and also they drew their last game 0-0 with Trabzonspor, which is where Andre Onana of the Manchester United lone goalkeeper is on loan. He kept a clean sheet, which for a Man United fan is really gutting because he couldn't do that for Man United in the Premier League, even if he tried. He couldn't catch a kettle of fish. So because of that, I'm going to go Ajax 1, Galatasaray 1. So I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw in that one. Moving on, we're going to go to Benfica v Leverkusen. So Benfica in their last Champions League game lost 3-0 at St James's Park against Newcastle. And then we also saw PSG lose 7-2 we lost by Leverkusen losing 7-2 to PSG. I think this one is going to be tough. I think this one's going to be tight. I think this one's going to be close. And I think Jose Mourinho will score twice at home. But I think Leverkusen will score twice away. So I'm going to go for a Desmond. I'm going to go for a 2-2 draw. Moving on to Barcelona and Club Brugge. Club Brugge are home to Barcelona. We've already jumped upon Bayern Munich beating Club Brugge 4-0. There was no chance in that one. And then Barcelona putting Olympiacos to bed 6-1 after the red card. They scored 4 goals after the red card went down. So they really closed that one out. Benfica, Club Brugge, since their recent defeat to Bayern Munich in the Champions League, they are 3 wins from 3, and Barcelona obviously lost in El Clasico, but they have also won 3 games from their last 4 or 3 games from their last 5. But honestly, they won yesterday, 3-1, looked really comfortable. Marcus Rashford scores again from the Manchester United loanee. Again, another Manchester United player that really should not have ever left. Barcelona are on 9 from 4 goals and are on 6 points after 3 games. And Club Brugge are on 3 points from 3 games with 5 and 7. I see this game being a little bit of a blowout in the way of Barcelona running crazy, like Bayern Munich did. But I see Club Brugge nicking a goal. It might be the first goal, it might be the last goal, but I see it being Club Brugge 1, Barcelona 5. So I think Barcelona are going to go mental in that one. Moving on to Inter Milan versus Kairat Almaty, which knocked Celtic out in the qualifications to make it to this historic landmark in the Champions League for the first time ever in their history. They have never played each other either, which is obviously a thing because Kairat are from Kazakhstan, and Inter Milan are obviously well used to the Champions League, where Inter Milan beat Union St. Galois 4-0 in their last Champions League game. I think Inter Milan are going to run mental here, and Inter Milan are really going to put some goals on their thing, and they are yet to concede in the Champions League, the same as Arsenal. But Inter Milan have got 9 goals to 0 conceded, and they sit third in the table, 3 from 3 with 9 points. I see him picking up 7, 8, 9 goals, but we're going to keep it as 7-0 Inter Milan. We're going to now move on to Man City and Dortmund, who are Man City just starting to get things back together, maybe. It's not been a confident performance from Man City recently. Since the departure of Kevin De Bruyne, there has been a lot of up and down games in their run. And their last game was a 2-0 win against Villarreal, at Villarreal. And Dortmund winning their last game over Copenhagen 4-2. Dortmund are on a 4 from 4 game streak, winning streak at the moment since their last Champions League game, and Man City are on a 2-game winning streak after losing to Aston Villa on the 26th of the 10th, which was the weekend after the Villarreal Champions League game. So you could say that they were either tired, but there's not really any excuses for that, to be totally honest. But what I'm going to say here is I think this might be a tight game. I think this might be a tight one, and I think this one might be a might be a game for the ages. It normally is between these two sides. When you look at their head-to-head record, Man City have won in their last 4 games against Dortmund, they've won 2-1. And their last performance was Dortmund 0 and Man City 0. But I'm going to go for another Desmond draw here. I'm going to go for 2-2. I did think about going Man City 2-1 because they're being at home at the Etihad. But Borussia Dortmund are showing so much good football at the moment, are on such a good run that I think they'll carry that run on. So that is my prediction, 2-2 in that one. Moving on to Marseille and Atalanta. Marseille winning their recent game 1-0 with down to 10 men. They're on a bit of a rough time of games recently. They were top of the league in Ligue 1. They are now behind PSG, who are now starting to get it all together and starting to really run away from the league a bit. I think this will be a nice breakaway for Marseille in this one. Being back at home against Atalanta. Atalanta haven't won a game since the 30th and the 9th against Club Brugge in the Champions League. They have had a 0-0 draw against Lazio, a 0-0 draw against Slavia Prague, a 1-1 draw against Cremonese, a 1-1 draw against AC Milan, and a 1-0 defeat to Udinese in the recent coming week. They lost 1-0 in that one. And Atalanta are sat 17th, Marseille is sat 18th. Both Marseille are on 3 points from 6 and 4 goals conceded. And Atalanta are on 2 goals scored, 5 conceded, 4 points. So, which is their one win that they had for 2-1. And then they've also drawn 0-0. So there is another game in there where they scored. But because of that, and because of their poor run of games recently and not scoring, I'm going to say Marseille 2, Atalanta 0, ladies and gentlemen. And moving on to our final game of the Champions League week number 4, obviously, which is halfway through this competition. Newcastle coming off of the back of a 3-1 defeat to West Ham, but then also had 3 wins in between, and that was away from home. But if you look at Newcastle's last 3 home games, they've won 3-0, 2-1 and 2-0. And you can actually carry that back all the way to when Arsenal played them at St James's Park. And that is their last actual defeat at St James's Park, was against Arsenal in that 2-1 defeat on the 28th of the 9th, 2025. And then since then, they've won at St Gilloise in the Champions League 4-0. They beat Nottingham Forest 2-0 at home, lost to Brighton 2-1 away, beat Benfica 3-0 at home, beat Fulham 2-1 at home, beat Tottenham 2-0 at home, and West Ham won 3-1. And Newcastle lost 3-1 away to West Ham just this past week. But then you look at Atletico Bilbao, they've lost to Real Sociedad, they've lost to Getafe, they beat Qarabag, they drew 0-0 with Lecce, and they beat Mallorca 2-1. But for me, Newcastle at home are a totally different kettle of fish to them being away from home. And because this one's at St James's Park, I'll go Newcastle 3 and Atletico Bilbao 1. So that wraps up our Champions League predictions for this week. Week 4 of the division, which will take us, after this round, will take us 4 games in out of the 8 to play, meaning that we are then only halfway through the Champions League season and everything will start taking shape. You can now, in about 15 minutes after this video, I will be filming the rest of Tuesday's football, which will bring you the Championship, League One, the National League, the EFL Trophy, the Professional Development League, and that is all we have for you on Tuesday. Yep, that is all we have on Tuesday for you, unless... Oh, we actually have an extra one for you on the Tuesday. It is the... we have a couple of other sorry, we have a couple of other games for you, including we are going to be covering a couple of other Tuesday games that would not be normally in anyone else's predictions, but that is why you join me, Josh the Prediction Master, or Josh the host of all predictions rather than just your special ones. We bring you all sorts like the Championship, League One, National League South, the EFL Trophy, the Under-21s League, the Premier League International Cup, the Copa del Rey, Liana, the women's competition of the Copa del Rey in the men's game. That will be brought on to you for Tuesday. And then coming up on Wednesday, as we've already covered the Champions League for you, we will then cover the Championship's rest of their games, the National League rest of their games, the National League South, their game, the EFL Trophy, their game, the Under-21 League, their game, La Liga 2, their game, and the Copa del Rey, women's Copa del Rey game as well. And that will be on Wednesday. But you can catch those videos round about the same time as this one, maybe an hour or 2 hours after this one comes out. We will get them all uploaded in time for the games on Tuesday, Wednesday, and also coming up as well on Wednesday and Thursday, we have the Copa, we have a League One game, Europa League scores, the Conference League games, and the Copa del Rey women of their competition as well. They will all be coming up after this video has been filmed and has been released, but they will be all out by tomorrow, which will be Tuesday, so you can catch all those videos back to back, and I hope you enjoy. And let's see, on Wednesday evening around about 10 o'clock I will be filming the results show of these predictions in the Champions League for you, so you can see how I get on, as well as leave your comments, leave your predictions in the comments below. All the matches will be in the description. Just copy and paste them, and then just leave your predictions in the comments and let me know how you get on, and we'll see. Thank you ever so much. Goodbye and God.